Here's a fun fact for the day. Galileo's middle finger is on display at the Museo Galileo in Florence, Italy.
Grimm.
To the brim.
Grimm to the brim.
Grimm to the brim.
Brim to the brim.
Grimm.
Brim to the brim.
Grimm to the brim.
Brim to the brim. Brim to the brim.
Grimm to the brim.
Grim. Brim to the brim. Still grim.
Grimm to the brim.
Brim to the brim.
Grimm to the brim.
Grim. Brim to the brim.
Grimm to the brim.
Grim. Got work on Tuesday, Andy.
This is why I shouldn't do intros, and this is why I shouldn't be the first voice in the story. Good day, and welcome to episode Honk Honk, Honk Honk, Honk Honk, Honk Honk, Honk Honk, Honk Honk Honk, Honk Honk of Grimm to Brim.
Fuck my life.
Each week we read a Grimm's fairy tale, and then, if we have time, one of us will do an original Grimm-inspired true story from our own lives. So let's get started with a real one. What do we have this week?
It's called Rumpelstiltskin. And here we go. There once was a miller who was poor, but who had a beautiful daughter. Now it happened that he had to go and speak to the king, and in order to make himself appear important, he said to him,
I have a daughter who can spin straw into gold.
The king said to the miller,
This is an art which pleases me as well. If your daughter is as clever as you say, bring her tomorrow to my palace, and I will try what she can
You
do.
sound like the great and powerful Oz.
And when the girl was brought to him, he took her into a room which was quite full of straw, gave her a spinning wheel and a reel, and said,
Now set to work, and if by tomorrow morning early you have not spun this straw into gold during the night, you must die.
Thereupon he himself locked up the room and left her in it alone. So there sat the poor miller's daughter, and for her life could not tell her what to do. She had no idea how straw could be spun into gold, and she grew more and more miserable, until at last she began to weep. But all at once the door opened, and in came a little man, and said,
Good evening, Mistress Miller. Why are you crying so?
Alas,
answered the girl.
I have to spin straw into gold, and I do not know how to do it.
What will you give me
Said the mannequin.
if I do it for you?
My necklace.
Said the girl. Is she all right?
God, she's not alright. She doesn't know how to fucking spin straw into gold, does she? She's gonna die in the morning. She's so fucking far from alright.
Yeah, I mean, she started to weep, and she's like,
Oh, I'm
Oh.
weeping.
She's despondent.
I can't cry, otherwise I get crow's feet.
The little man took the necklace, seated himself in front of the wheel, and said,
Vir, vir, vir.
3 turns, and the reel was full, and he put on another, and whir. Not as good
What?
as yours. 3 times round.
It's not the same at
second
all.
was full too. Whir. And so it went on until the morning, when all the straw was spun and all the reels were full of gold. By daybreak the king was already there, and when he saw the gold he was astonished and delighted, but his heart became only more greedy. He had the miller's daughter taken into another room full of straw, which was much larger, and commanded her to spin that also in one night if she valued her life.
This is becoming grounds of illegality, you know that. It went from a kidnapping to slavery.
Well, I don't understand why this is happening in the first place. Was it that the father was like trying to sound cool to the king?
Yeah.
It was like, my daughter can spin this.
Yeah, he was like, I've got this like dope daughter. Do you want to marry her? And he was like, what talents has she got?
She's got 85 TikTok followers, but like, can she spin straw into gold?
Hashtag TikTok tricks.
Because that would make a pretty good TikTok as it happens.
The girl knew not how to help herself and was crying when the door opened again and the little man appeared and said,
What will you give me if I spin the straw into gold for you?
The ring on my finger.
answered the girl.
She's completely checked out. Like, she's just gone mad.
The little man took the ring again and began to turn the wheel, and by morning had spun all the straw into glittering gold. The king rejoiced beyond measure at the sight, but he still had not enough gold. And he and the miller's daughter taken into a still larger room full of straw and said,
You must spin this too in the course of the night, but if you succeed, you shall be my wife, even if she be a miller's daughter.
thought he.
I could not find a richer wife in the whole world.
I don't think she's going to want to be his wife at this point. I mean,
Don't try and sleep around him, basically.
if anything, I would just try and get away. When the girl was alone, the mannequin came again for the third time and said,
Where's this
What
mannequin?
will you give me if I spin the straw for you this time also?
I have nothing left that I could give.
she finally broke. Answered the girl.
She's a bit more present now, at least.
I think the reality is finally hit her.
How skint is this king? Why does he want gold off some rando? Like,
It's not that he's scared, he's just greedy.
Ah, the greedy king. So yeah, I think he'll stop at 3 times, you know? Three
Well, that
3
is the
times
rule.
strong.
Good round number, that.
You can't go past 3, otherwise the story loses all credibility.
Then promise me, if you should become queen, your first child.
Who knows whether that will ever happen?
thought the miller's daughter, and not knowing how else to help herself in this strait, she promised the mannequin what he wanted, and for that he once more span the straw into gold. And when the king came in the morning and found all he had wished, he took her in marriage, and the pretty miller's daughter became a queen. A year after, she had a beautiful child, and she never gave a thought to the mannequin. But suddenly, he came into her room and said,
He just
"Surprise,
comes to
motherfucker!"
Surprise! Now give me what you promised!
The queen was horror-struck and offered the mannequin all the riches of the kingdom if he would leave her the child. But the mannequin said,
No! Something that is living is dearer to me than all treasures in the world.
The queen began to weep and cry, so that the mannequin pitied her.
I will give you 3 days' time.
Said he,
If by that time you find out my name, then shall you keep your child. Oh, well, geez, calm down, bitch. It's just a child.
So the queen thought the whole night of all the names that she had ever heard. That must have took
All of them.
12.
quite some
12.
time.
Father
Dave.
Chewy Louie.
Peter, Steve, Chris.
Colin.
That was it.
Bartholomew?
Yeah. Keith.
Is it Keith? It must be Keith. It's
Definitely
Keith.
Keith.
He looked like
I'll
a
just
Keith.
tell him Keith and it'll be all fine.
If it's not Keith, it should be.
She sent a messenger over the country to inquire far and wide for any other names there may be.
Is there more than 12, though? Go north, south, east, and west, far as this land can go, and tell me if there are more than 12 names in the world.
When you find the edge of the world where everybody has fallen off, that's when you know you've reached the end.
That's when you'll find the ultimate Keith.
The real Keith.
The boss Keith.
Wait, does that mean that her name is one of those other names?
She's called Keith.
She's
Yeah,
called Keith
she
as
is,
well.
yeah.
All right.
You
Big
never find
twist.
out her name, by
You
the way.
gave away
That's
the
the thing.
twist halfway through.
When the mannequin came the next day, she began with, and here we go, Caspar,
The Friendly
Melchior,
Ghost.
and Balthazar. And said all,
Just saying. Does she go no, like
All the
number 1,
names.
Casper?
she said all the names she knew, one after the other, which were those 3 and Keith. But to everyone, the little man said.
That is not my name.
On the second day, she had inquiries made in the neighbourhood as to the names of the people there, and she repeated to the mannequin the most uncommon and curious.
Perhaps your name is Short Ribs, or Sheepshanks, or Lace Leg.
Are you calling me short ribs because of my height? You bitch! For that you have 2 days.
I mean, at least it wasn't Keith or Caspar. But he always answered,
That is not my name.
"That's not my name. That's not my name.
You call me Keith. You call me Keith.
You call me Keith. You call me
You
Caspar."
call me Balthazar. That's not my name.
On the third day, the messenger came back again and said,
I have not been able to find a single new name. But as I came to a high mountain at the end of the forest, where the fox and the hare bid each other good night, there I saw a little house, and before the house a fire was burning, and round about the fire quite a ridiculous little man was jumping. He hopped upon one leg and shouted, "Today I bake, tomorrow brew. The next I'll have the young queen's child. Ha, glad am I that no one knew that Rumpelstiltskin I am styled."
You may think how glad the queen was when she heard the name. And soon afterwards, the little man came in and asked.
Now, Mistress Queen, what is my name?
At first, she said,
Is your name Conrad?
No.
She's loving this, isn't she? She's going to properly milk this.
Is your name Harry?
Piss a pot and no.
Perhaps your name is Rumpelstiltskin.
The devil! The devil has told you that! The devil has told you that!
cried the little man, and in his anger he plunged his right foot so deep into the earth that his whole leg went in, and then in a rage he pulled at his left leg so hard with both hands that he tore himself in two. The end.
Pretty strange ending, guys. The execs are not happy with it.
Angry!
That's a full-on, like, a kid couldn't be bothered to finish the story type ending,
And
right?
then he plunged his leg into the ground.
He kicked the ground so hard and then got angry and ripped himself in
We were
half.
thinking, like, what if there was an ending? Like, something that happened? No. He plunged his leg into the earth. Right. Okay. And that's the end, yeah?
Bear in mind, he's like magic. Like, he can do crazy shit, and he's just like,
I'll plunge this leg into the earth and then rip my other one off. Well, that
Okay.
was a wonderful story. I
Rumpelstiltskin,
think we
innit?
could all agree.
I
And
don't
now
get
it's
it.
time for
Can we...
Breal of a lifetime. Let's all join in unison to sing the new theme song for it, which is 1, 2, 3. The Breal of a lifetime. All right.
Here's a fun fact for the day. Galileo's middle finger is on display at the Museo Galileo in Florence, Italy.
Okay, here's the story. It's called The Fairground. In the days of old, when the Grimm brothers walked the earth in handmade repurposed potato sacks, the lands were filled with humble homes for peasants who smelled like the inside of a rectum. It is believed that kings and queens lived in castles scattered all throughout the same lands to irritate these peasants by merely existing on an unnecessarily grandiose scale. One day, a peasant who had spent his day eating raw fingernails from a pail he found in a hole under his armpit decided to walk out of his house and scream at his neighbour. He was not sure why, but the desire to do so had been building for around 6 days and was now uncontrollable. He shoved open his barely functional front door and bounded out into the yard. His neighbour was hanging from a noose, as he had been for the last 8 years. He was not dead, but he was not alive either. "Bertrand, you smelly fool! I hate you!" he screamed at the twitching, semi-conscious man in the noose, to no reaction whatsoever. Just then, a man with a curled moustache was riding past on a penny-farthing bicycle and fell off from the shock of the incident. He bounded over to the peasant. "Now look here, you blundering buffoon! You've caused me great irritation, and frankly, the only way to move past this is for you to purchase something extravagant from me." The peasant stared blankly at the man's moustache. "Do you hear me?" asked the tashed man. "I do, yes. Sorry about the shock, but I have no money." "That's quite all right. I have no use for money," he said, twirling his moustache. "I will accept no payment other than... I'll take your house. That will do." The peasant looked shocked. "Yes, you buy from me this rat." He pulled a dead rat from his coat pocket and handed it to the man. "And I'll take your house. Does that sound fair?" The peasant sighed and took the rat from the man. "I suppose it does. I did give you a bit of a fright after all." Yes. Thank you very much. Good day. Oh, and one other thing. If you plant the rat in the ground, it will grow into something you may have use for. Good day." Yeah, good day to you. Bye, see you around. Yes, good day." The peasant's wife came walking down the street with a sack on her back filled with potatoes she had stolen from a nearby field. Husband, I'm home and I'm very hungry for potatoes. Let's go inside and eat them. Raw. Ah, about that, said the peasant. I've traded our house for this rat. I didn't want to, but a man, I startled him when I screamed at our neighbour in the tree, so I had to give him the house. Again? Asked his wife. She seemed a little annoyed at the prospect of being homeless because of her husband's shouting, but was intrigued by the rat. It's a magnificent creature you've got there. Shall we eat it? Raw? We could go live in my sister's bin. It's only 400 miles away. Huzzah! What a fantastic idea, said the peasant man, and the two set off on a journey that was estimated to take 17 years of continuous walking. They ate all of the potatoes on the first day, and then the man remembered what the circus performer had said about the rat. He told his wife they must stop for one day to bury the rat. She seemed irritated by the delay in their rather long journey, but her eyes were bedazzled by the rat and its decaying beauty. Her stomach growled, and she wanted to eat it so much she actually couldn't resist trying wildly to grab it from her husband. Control yourself, woman, said the peasant. I must bury this rat in the ground. The man said I should. So he dug a small hole in the earth with his hands and shoved the rat into it. He kicked the earth over it and stood waiting for something to happen. Nothing happened for 5 days. He was very tired. His wife had gone to sleep in a nearby bush, but he kept watch. It began to rain, and suddenly the buried rat began to transform and grow into something that could only be described as a gigantic fairground, bigger than his whole village. There was nearly every sort of stand and amenity possible, imaginable. A cotton candy stall. He didn't know what cotton candy was because it had not been invented, but it was all over the place. Pink and blue swirls of it hanging in plastic bags all over. A full-on loop-de-loop roller coaster emblazoned with Pepsi Max logos. And of course, a ghost train, complete with an official Elsie siren that sent shivers down his spine. The man woke his wife up, who had been badly scratched up by the bush. She was a tad grumpy, but very much amazed by the futuristic theme park, which had sprouted up all around her. It seemed the theme park was fully operational and was being run by a staff of ghost-like rat men and women. Rolleth up, and go on this ghost train, shouted one ghost rat who looked like a rat but with a bedsheet over his head. It was confusing because it was as small as a rat, but the bedsheet was full-sized. In fact, the whole fairground was filled with bed sheets being occupied by rats. It looked quite bizarre, and they all started their sentences with the phrase, rolleth up, rolleth up. The peasant lost interest in much of the goings-on with the fairground and decided to just leave it where it was and continue on his journey to his sister-in-law's bin. So he and his wife set off with provisions of candy floss and churros. After only 17 years arrived at the bin, they climbed in and lived happily ever after inside. The end.
So what was the real story?
Well, the real story was I was on Facebook Marketplace and I was just scrolling through one day and there was this fucking ghost train and it was only £11 and I thought, hey, wouldn't it be funny if I bought that? And that was it, really.
Here's a fun fact for the day. Galileo's middle finger is on display at the Museo Galileo in Florence, Italy.
Here's the side context, because I also live in this house. David proposed to me that we get rid of our very expensive leather sofas and replace them with this ghost train, including tracks, quoting to me, yeah, but it works and we can put the tracks through into the kitchen and back into the lounge.
Right, and also in the garden, which was not really a ridiculous idea when you consider how much fun that would have been. Back then, there was no pandemic, and people used to come to the house sometimes and watch films, and I thought...
People didn't come to the house to go on a fucking ghost train.
Imagine coming to the house, right, and you think, oh, well, this is going to be an okay evening. And then it's like, there's a ghost train in the fucking living room, and, like, you can get in it and go...
Is my pen gonna explode?
Could somebody give him prod?
Tranquilize him. Quick.
End call.
It was at this point he had to be sedated.
Here's a fun fact for the day. Galileo's middle finger is on display at the Museo Galileo in Florence, Italy.
This was £11 for a ghost train with track. £11. You can't even buy a pair of trainers in Asda for £11.
Yeah, You know why it's £11 though? Just because it's an absolute burden that they
Well, I
wanted rid
found
of.
out
Because it
that,
comes with ghost rats.
After messaging the guy, I found out that in order to get it, you had to pick it up with your own transit, and I didn't have any transit.
That was
so-
the only reason we didn't get it.
Surely you just put the track down and ride it home. Just keep
Just take it from behind you and lay it like in
Lay
cartoons.
the back down.
Yeah, it might take 17 years, but you'd get there in the end.
It was quicker than going to live in a bin, you know.
That's where you'd be if you'd have bought it, love.
Well, there you go.
I just love how the peasant just accepts it and he's like, oh, okay, I'll just swap my house for this rat then.
And that's very David, isn't it? I just
Well, he did
Well,
give
I
him
mean,
a
the-
bit of a fright after all.
the offer's there, so I guess I got to do it. I mean,
It was about 3 a.m, and I was supposed to go to bed. I'm like, what if I just started writing a Breal? Yeah. So I did, and that's what you just heard.
have you got that chocolate egg in
Just
your
having a
mouth now? Is
pretzel.
that
Coated in chocolate.
just someone's just left a chocolate egg at the door for you?
This is just me, right? I mean, this is a side discussion. It's also quite relevant. Is it just me, or do these Grimm stories kind of just end really abruptly, and then people that want to make them into things like Disney and that have to actually like think of a proper
A
fucking
whole new
ending?
storyline.
Like they have to think of the last 15 minutes of the story
Yes.
because it ain't in there.
I mean,
think
gotta give
look-
those writers something to do.
You think that they couldn't have this is probably why they're in a volume, isn't it? Because
That's probably why.
That's what I thought.
Well, you're very disruptive. I'm going to shut the door.
you'd be pretty disappointed if someone bought you I bought you Rumpelstiltskin for your birthday, and you read it. And
Oh yeah, it's like 1 page long.
yeah.
Size 8 font.
It's just a case of like quantity, not quality. So they just got as many stories as they could possibly find.
Yeah, our stories are shit, so if we're going to release them, we better put them out in some sort of anthology. Otherwise, people are going to kick off.
So a spider just crawled out the end of my microphone. I had to spit it out. Honestly, I nearly swallowed it. It got right past my lips.
I actually love spiders.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to collect them in a jar, and once it was full, I'd empty them into my pillowcase and go sleep over their wriggling legs. It's actually nothing more relaxing than that.
The last time I saw a spider, I actually shit my pants.
Oh.
No, really, I did.
This-
Shat them right through. I was at a matinee performance of Les Mis.
That sounds more scary than any spider. Sitting there at the theatre with shat pants.
Like, was it an accident from fear? Or did you force it?
I definitely forced it, but out of fear. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Suppose it does.
Absolutely. Yes.
Why would that make sense?
There aren't many eggs left these days. Chickens, they just stopped laying them around November time. But the farmers haven't let anybody know about it, and that's why eggs are so expensive these days.
There he goes, changing the subject to eggs again.
I found that once I stopped eating eggs, I actually couldn't see in the dark anymore. It was actually really depressing at the time. So I started eating powdered eggs instead. And hey presto, I could see in the dark again. I love a good night wonder.
I have never eaten an egg.
You must be joking.
Egg yolking.
I'm really frightened of the government, especially when it comes to their policies on eggs and egg consumption.
To be honest, I think you've got every right to be scared. The government these days are a bunch of absolute.
The government knows what's best for all of us, and I really think it's time to stop panicking and just listen to them.
Are you okay, Andy? Your voice went very strange there. Did you actually say that?
I understand your concern, but really, there's no reason to panic. The government knows what's best for all of us, and I'm not reading this.
The government knows what's best for all of us, and I really think it's time to stop panicking and just listen to them.
Yes, that sounds fair to me.
Well, there was a time when the government would just walk into your house, all of them, every MP in the country, and demand a cup of tea. And if you couldn't make them all one, you'd be shot. Literally shot. Can you believe that?
I once shat myself when I saw a government official in the street absolutely crapped my best white beach shorts. It was really horrible. I was at a cinema screening for the film adaptation of Les Mis. Really dreadful evening. I was actually kicked out because a few people told management I'd shat myself and it stank.
I don't see a problem with it. As long as it remains in your shorts, it should be perfectly legal. Now, shitting outside of the shorts, that's a bit of an issue.
I don't think it should be legal, but it should be tolerated. Like drinking alcohol from a brown bag.
What, so you can shit in a brown bag and that's perfectly okay?
Yes, that sounds fair to me.
Andy, you don't sound right. You've sounded a bit like a robot since that outburst. You know what? It smells like shit in here, actually.
That's because you insist on bringing bin bags of shit in from the garden and placing them in every room of the house.
Hey, it keeps the spiders away.
maybe I should try shitting on my microphone before each podcast episode.
As opposed to during the episode like normal.
Honestly, how dare you?
I think it was a joke, Andy.
It was definitely a joke.
An egg yolk. Huh?
Guys, I have to go. I just shit my pants again.
Right, well, it's been a great episode. One for the ages. I don't think we'll ever top this one. And I mean that sincerely.
Good
Good
night.
night, good Grimm, you brimming bunch of buffoons.
Like one more time.
Good night, and good Grimm, you brimming bunch of buffoons.
Look at that, he's trying to... I just feel like you're trying to embarrass me with these things you're making me say. Good night, and good grimming, you brimming bunch of buffoons. Good grimming and brimming. Good night and good brimming, you grimming bunch of Good night, and good grimming, you brimming bunch of buffoons.
It's the Breal of the lifetime. The Breal of the lifetime.
Here's a fun fact for the day. Galileo's middle finger is on display at the Museo Galileo in Florence, Italy.
Where she'd be like, "Oh, you stabbed me with a knife in the chest, mate. A bit rude, innit?" British people be like, British be like, "Oh, you stabbed me with a knife in the chest, mate. A bit rude, innit?"
Number 3, if you're still here. Gasping over a packet of kettle crisps. It's...
There we go.
Yeah, Mel,
brilliant.
you tell him.
I knew we had to have him here for a reason.
That was so perfect.
That was amazing.
How did he know he was the dog?
I don't know.
Keep that one in.
That was amazing.
All right, the one and the
Tell me
only...
whenever you want, Merlin.
The creator of the night music.
You know, I never like to just end an episode under 30 minutes, but just gonna I don't know, really, I've got like a minute left. Just don't know what to say really. You know, I'm still here. Just waiting for it to get to 30 minutes, and then I'm going to stop. Somebody's got to watch it until the very end, otherwise, you know,
Who knows what will happen? Nearly time now. 2, 1.